And we are live, I think. All right, a little bit of a delay. That was a little complicated setup.
It happens. What are
Yeah.
you going to do?
So we are using a new platform here to go live now, StreamYard. And we have Anthony and Death Smiles on. Hello, everybody. And we actually have another special guest joining very soon. He's running a tad bit late. Let's see how this works. So I guess I can see the comments here. Can you see the comments on your end? Oh, there we go. I vote yes, someone says. There is a hover vote we're going to be talking about. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm going to open Robinhood here shortly and read what that vote is. And that's kind of what we're going to be just discussing as a little bit of a hive mind. But I want to explore a little bit of this platform. There's all sorts of things. In general, while I do, just wanted to say hello. And Anthony and That Smiles, welcome back. It's actually been quite a while since we last spoke.
What's up?
I had an epiphany earlier today. I just like to get it out of the way real fast.
Sure thing.
Okay.
I got to wear my hover hat.
Oh, man. I emailed the guy about my merch box. I want two. One to never wear to keep as like an heirloom, and then one to rock around.
That's funny. As an heirloom. You should get some real hover shares as an heirloom, like the... God damn this AI camera. Zoom out further. Anyways.
You need to get Brandon to sign it for you before he sends it.
Woo! Yeah, sign that shit. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, man. If you're gonna put it in a display box or whatever, have them sign that shit and put it in there. Yeah. When they come out with the little model of the X7, you put it in there with it.
So let me tell you my epiphany I had. So I was talking to this guy, and he was talking about how like he likes hover, but like he doesn't know how they're gonna scale it up and all that kind of stuff. And I guess he had PTSD about previous EVTOL companies not delivering the goods. And then I was thinking about that one thing I told you like a few months ago about like when you're listening to somebody talk who has like thousands and thousands of hours of experience in something, the small little things that they say have a lot more nuances to them that first meets the eye. This guy has so much experience, but you hear him say like a simple thing, and at first glance, it just kind of goes over your head like, yeah, whatever. But like, there's only so many things he can actually say. Like, he's like, the thing's gonna fly. He's like, all indications of our data show that it's gonna fly is like what he can say, right? But do you remember when you were interviewing him and you asked him the question, were you guys inspired by any particular animal in the design of your craft? Because you thought it looked like a manta ray. I said I thought it looked like a shark. And you asked him that, and he said, no, we weren't particularly inspired by any particular animal. But then the very next thing he said was, you didn't provoke it at all beyond your asking him, do you guys, inspired by an animal? Then he got into the bio mimicry, right? And then he got into the nature scales things up. Nature as an unended quest for efficiency is his quote exactly. And I did a little research into birds. And apparently the smallest flying bird is 40 grams. And the largest flying bird is 40 pounds, right? So that's 40 grams to 40 pounds. What is that? Like now grams and pounds, that they're different metric systems. Right. Anyway, it comes out to 450. It comes out to 450 orders of magnitude ratio. And all we got to do is a 10x, 600 pounds to 6,000 pounds is all we got to do. So I figure, he's rocking. You know what I'm saying? He's rocking the he's rocking the biomimicry. Natural law, Mother Nature prefers certain scalings and efficiency. So I'm like,
Do you remember though? At the same time, he spoke about how bumblebees, if you scaled them up to a large size, they can't fly because they're very lightweight. Even just like drones fly very easily. Even crappy drones, because they're very lightweight. You can have, let's call it, shitty designs, right? But when you get to these really large numbers, even though you're speaking of from the 40 grams to the 440 pounds is a 450x, and all we need is a 10x, that sounds so little compared to that. But that 10x is so much harder than that 450x because of how he's mentioned the Reynolds numbers. I don't fully understand what that is, but for my understanding, it's the concept of it grows exponentially in difficulty as you scale up in size as what you want to fly, right? I mean, it's the same reason, like you can say going from 10,000 pounds to 100,000 pounds is 10x also, right? But that's going to be so much harder than, the first 10x of 1,000 to 10,000.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just, I don't know. That's just a phenomenon in flight, right? In air, in I don't know, gravity. I found out something. Gravity is the fastest. I didn't know gravity actually even like had a speed. I guess it does, obviously. But did you know gravity is as fast as light? I didn't know that. That was interesting. Just a random.
Do you know that gravity bends light also?
Yes.
Ooh.
And
light bender.
And water also changes the speed of light, which interestingly enough, that means light speed is variable and it isn't the same speed. So actually a better form of speed is gravity. When we say light speed, it's better to actually say it's just a better concept would be the speed of gravity, because the speed of light technically can change. But, for all intents and purposes, it's just this extremely fast. So, but that's just an interesting random thing I learned recently. Anyways, let me get to the comments here real quick. We don't have many people, but we have two. We have Dick Johnson. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. He votes yes. We're gonna get to the vote actually in a moment here. We're waiting on Mark Berry. Actually, I don't know. Did he say he should be coming on soon? And
now soon could be 5 minutes, or soon could be 5 minutes, or soon could be an hour and 6 minutes. You can say.
That's right. Yeah, he's a little bit delayed because he is airborne, or at least landed at this point. I'm not sure. But he was flying his plane somewhere. Pretty damn cool. If only he had the Cav X7, then he could fly us around. His airplane's just like a 2 or 4 seater. But yeah, that thing will be awesome to have. Rip OG Whale says, still haven't done it. That's right. That's why actually we're making this video, and we are 8 minutes in without even talking about the vote. We're gonna get there. Jackson says, Deke Jackson, I'm bullish on HOVR, maybe too bullish. Guys, in 1 year, are we going to $11? What's your thoughts, Matan, Anthony, and That Smiles? I think on the hike I had with That Smiles, what was we said $11, right? Was that the price target?
Well, I kind of feel like we're going to just do 10 times whatever we did last year. So we'll see how it plays out this month and next month. But, we did 25 cents up to 41 cents last year around October into beginning of November. And then November 11th, which just happens to be Veterans Day, is when we started to rally. We had like a 50 or 60% rally. So I'm kind of hoping the same thing happens this year. We got the 11th is Tuesday. That's Veterans Day. So maybe get a nice rally and we'll continue on into Christmas. Hopefully get $12 to $15 and then pull back. But I don't know, man. We'll see how it rolls.
We'll see. I was able to add here a dancing skeleton on the corner by Death Smile, so that fits pretty nicely. This platform's pretty cool. I might upgrade and start using this.
Yeah, I think in line with the cubic that cubic natural law thing you were talking about things don't scale out identically, like as you go up the multiple changes. I kind of think the stock price might do that kind of thing because it's easier for a person to, buy a lot of shares when it's 50 cents versus when it's $8. These retail investors only got so much money. So that might have like a mathematical negative on it hitting its true projections and so forth. But yeah, anything like that's very possible. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, any of that's very possible, I think.
That's
Yeah.
true, but there is a difference in the people who will invest. People like the penny stocks; they like them cheap. That's why we have all these people in SCWO right now. But once that thing hits $5+ also, and just like hover, and then
Yeah.
it's going to be hard to accumulate thousands of shares. Then that's when the institutional investors can actually buy, and that's when the retail investors kind of start maybe buying less, so to speak, because they're going to maybe find the next penny stock, right? I mean, just like myself with the Duro, I was buying a lot when it was a penny stock at $4 or $5. My average is up to like 7 now, and I kind of stopped buying. It's hovering at like 15+ bucks. I'm happy with how much I got. And I'm moving on to the next penny stocks. That's why people probably haven't heard me talk too much about a Duro. As I'm accumulating my hover and SCWO at this moment. But yeah, let me get to the rest of these comments and then let's get to the vote here. Maybe Mark will join very shortly. Rip OG Whale says, I hope so, but depends on Brandon. And he said the next 3 to 6 months will be explosive. So let's see what's happening. He can't really predict what the stock price will be, but maybe when he says it'll be explosive, I guess in terms of what they have a lot of news and stuff going on probably to announce. So that's pretty exciting. Oh, look who I didn't realize I can show the comments. That's cool. That's true. That's cool. I can now start showing the comments. And
That's great.
Mark Berry has joined the show. What's up, Mark?
What's up, guys? Sorry I'm a little bit late.
No worries. I was telling them you were just flying your plane.
Yeah.
Let me catch you up to speed. All that you missed so far was my epiphany about when he asked him about was the airplane inspired by any particular animal, and then he said no, not really. But then Brandon originated his own communication about biomimicry and scale up and natural laws of nature, liking a quest for unending efficiency, and how the smallest bird is 40 grams and the largest flying bird is 40 pounds, which is a 450x. And that was in the concept of people would be like, will it actually scale up to 10x size, 6,500 pounds? That's all that really happened. And then some guy asked about the our stock predictions.
All right, I'm caught up.
All right. I am patient and like this hybrid a lot. You're right, average. Joe's got to get in early. Okay. All right. So we have a very small amount of people here watching, but I don't care. We love live streams. This is fun, and people will watch anytime later. The purpose of this whole live stream is to go over the vote, in which Mark actually knows very little to nothing probably about. So we're going to get his live opinion and reactions. Oh, is the market open? Wow, my stocks are up right now. I was just going to open hover right now.
You're getting pre-market.
Yes, that's right. Oh, Tesla and Palantir are up. That's why. Oh, and CRISPR. Ooh, let's go. Okay. So I'm opening my Robinhood. Anthony and Dead Smiles maybe know a little more about this, but I'm pulling it up here. I don't think I'm gonna screen share because we have 4 of us, so I guess I could screen share, but I'm doing this on my phone now. Whatever. Very impromptu call today. This wasn't super scheduled, but I guess I should have just pulled it up anyways. So we just have a few votes. We only have 3 little things. The first vote is election of class 2 directors. And it says for all or withhold all. Oh, or you can pick a select few people. Okay, cool. Okay, so basically, there's two people here. There is John Maris, which says 4, recommended by the board, or withhold if we don't want him, I guess, to be part of. Wait, what is election of Class 2 directors? Just him being on the board, I'm assuming. Election of Class 2 directors. And then
But just their executive board, most likely.
And then Jamil Januja. I don't know who that is, and maybe we
That
should
dude's a
do
badass. That dude's a badass.
Really cool. So you should talk about him in a moment. I actually just know about the first person. Both of them are recommended by the board, so I think that's a pretty easy vote. For me, John Maris, I know he's the guy who is part of 3C that helps with them with their whole compliance to get certified in Canada. So kind of no brainer for me, unless it's unclear to me what election of Class 2 directors actually means. I mean, we're not giving them any extra shares or something, are we? I mean, even if so, that's not that big a deal. But if we're just electing them to stay on the board or be on the board, John Maris is a yes for me. And Anthony, you want to enlighten us about Jamil? Sorry, I've been talking way too much.
Yeah, I haven't been stalking the guy or nothing like that. I don't know his blood type or nothing, but I do know he's got like experience with lots of flying, and he looks like he's getting like rockets or something. And he has a very nice looking resume of things I did not memorize, and he seems really cool. They should probably give him 150,000 shares just to keep him on the team. We need to add employees. You know what I'm saying? We got work to do.
Okay. Desmels, you know anything about him? Did you cast your vote yet?
Yeah, I mean I'm for all on everything they're voting for. That's the same thing I did last year. But yeah, that dude's pretty highly decorated. He's worked with the Air Force. He's worked with the Royal Navy. He's worked with NASA, doing test flights for NASA. He is a pretty badass dude. So I'm happy that he's on, and I'm happy to vote for him.
Desmels, you remember more than most of us since you especially voted last year. Around this time, the vote was around this time last year, correct?
Yes.
And then didn't the stock price kind of go up afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of people that were kind of against the vote back then, but it was just go with the flow for me. So, yeah, it wasn't really after the vote that the stock price picked up. I mean, like last year, it was the 11th. It was Veterans Day was the day that it started to rally. And we're coming upon that here in 2 days. So I'm hoping that that's going to be the same case again. And then, it's going to do its thing up and down, and then we'll maybe get a nice Christmas rally into the new year.
Cool. So we have a yes for John Maris and a yes for Jamil Januja. The question number 2 on here is ratification of auditors. To appoint MNP LLP as our auditor and independent registered public accounting firm for the year ending May 31st, 2026. For, against, or abstain. Do you guys know what this is about?
It's just who keeps all their books in order. So, you have an auditor go through all your books at the end of the year, or the quarter, or whatever, and make sure that everything's all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, everything's story, blah, 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 blah.
Why do you think we would even need to vote for that? That's weird. Well, we could say.
Well, you typically vote for your auditor
that...
every year. I think we voted for Trisha last year. So whoever these people are, they're taking over. Maybe there was somebody that was recommended by Kanzo, or I don't know, but.
Okay, I get MNP is some limited liability partner, I guess, LLP. I was very confused what those letters were for. Okay, so it's just a company that will be the auditor. I guess, sure. If not, it would be what? If we abstain, what? We would keep Trisha, one lady, instead of a company doing it?
Then we would have to find a different auditor. I mean, that's basically it. So like with the stock market, typically there's like so many companies that do these public audits for people for the NASDAQ and whatever. And certain companies are like highly reputable. Like you remember what happened with SMCI or whatever? They got in big trouble, and their auditor basically was like, look, I just can't even do your books anymore, and I'm going to walk away. You know what I mean? Because they're like basically saying they're pulling too much shit and we can't cover it up for them. So like having a good auditor in there who's reputable and all that stands behind your books, I mean, that's a good thing.
Okay. So pretty easy, yes. Is there any reason to not vote, to vote against it? Not hearing from anyone? No. Okay. So it looks like
Maybe it depends on how much it costs. Like, you were talking about they're spending $150,000 on their website, right? So like maybe Trish is pulling down 80K. You know what I mean? Maybe MMSI Inc. Maybe they're trying to get that 900,000. You know what I mean? So hey.
Oh man.
that is an interesting, yeah, that is a good point. But they don't disclose anything of those numbers. Wait, actually, Palo Infit. Oh, proxy statement. Oh, there is a little statement. I didn't see this. Did you guys see this? I don't know if this. Oh, this does talk about it. Okay, you know what? I feel a little dumb to not show this on camera and do a whole deep dive. Let me just share this on screen real quick, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, plus in the end, if it's what they recommend, then it should be fine. You don't hop on a ship and question the captain's sanity. You know what I mean? It's like if they say it's good, it's good. It's good. It's good. Whatever. Let's roll. Let's go. We got secret sauce to whip up. You know what I mean?
Sounds right. Sounds good. Let's do it. So, all right, we have 4 and 4 voting for them too. And then we have here 4. Here is our proxy statement. Let's open that up.
Can I ask Mark a question really quick while you're organizing stuff?
Go ahead.
From your large plethora of experience in engineering and aviation, do you think that the 10 scale up from the 650-pound to the 6,500-pound, from your breadth of experience, would you say this is highly logical, probable? What do you think?
It's probable to highly likely.
That's what I think.
Yeah, it's I mean, if you look at scales, it literally comes. You're talking about just their ability to lift.
Sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's highly. They're going to scale. The wing's going to get bigger, so that gives you a larger disk area to create vertical lift, just within your ducted fans. It really comes down to just can their motors produce the torque at the velocity at the rotational velocity speed that they need to, and typically you design these fans to be subsonic at the tips. Of course, like as your radius goes out further, your rotational speed increases because you're going further out. And you don't want that to go over the speed of sound. So that is a variable that kind of limits you in. So then when you start increasing your disk area, so on their smaller scale, the X5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or it was the X5. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that that had smaller fans or smaller diameter fans. So you would actually spin that at a higher RPM because the tip speeds don't get as fast, just because of the rate, the overall diameter of the duct is not as big. But as you get bigger, then you get more efficiency for power. And then it just comes down to, can you get a motor that can spin this thing close to the speed of sound for the diameter that you have, to where your tips get, say like, 0.8 Mach, 0.9 Mach. You can do some funky stuff with the blades and make them actually supersonic at the tips, but that's probably outside of the realm of what they want to do. But it just comes down to, in my mind, the batteries or the motor selection. And if they can find a motor, and then if they can find batteries that can power those motors, because remember, you have voltage gives you potential, which can kind of give you just an overall umph, but current is what you really need. And these bigger motors are going to draw a lot more current, which means you got to have batteries that can discharge that current. But I think they can do it. I don't see any reason why they can't do it. It's going to be a much bigger airplane for sure.
Yeah.
And
Because he said 65.
Yeah, and Brandon has said too. He's like, well, we've got our motor. They basically have a systems integration lab already, where he's claimed they're already testing their motors, they're testing their bigger fans, and he has said they're getting much better numbers than what they even anticipated. So if that's the case, I think they'll be able to. I guess the question will be just at what weight penalty will you have? And you kind of equate that to, like, you go buy a leaf blower, like, the latest and greatest leaf blowers, and you can get one with a 20 amp hour battery, or you can get one with a 40 amp hour battery. They're both kicking out the same amount of amps. It's just one lasts less. But that's really what Brandon and HOVR is doing. That's kind of their secret sauce, is they say, well, we can go with much smaller batteries and still get the same output just for a much shorter period of time. And I think, I mean, for them, this is just it for them. You literally have to ask yourself, are they misleading investors? If they're misleading investors, then they don't have a solution, and they're not going to get there. And this is going to be this will start to show itself as we get further and further along. But nothing that I see is misleading investors. So at least at this point.
Yeah, because it seems like the two main bear cases, everybody's like, oh, beautiful plane, cool design. Two main bear cases is, will it scale, and do they have enough money? And it's like, besides time traveling and seeing the future, all one can do is deduce with the facts to see what's what and find a truth.
Yeah. I mean, I have liked HOVR's configuration from the second I saw it. It makes sense that if you can come up with a battery solution to really just offload an enormous amount of current, and cars do that right now, although batteries on cars are really big and they're really heavy, and obviously HOVR doesn't want to carry that type of battery around. But you can get batteries with a really high C rating, and the C rating is how quickly can they discharge. And that's really what HOVR needs to do, is they need a battery that can discharge an enormous amount of power. And if you have that ability to discharge that really large amount of current at the voltage that the battery operates at, then, I mean, you can make motors as big as you want. And I think the motors will kind of scale commensurately. So they're going to do it. I don't, if you ask me from an engineering perspective, they have a working model, and it just comes down to them packaging the systems in and building their prototype.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah.
Agreed.
Awesome.
Agreed completely.
yeah. So, hey, what is the name of the guy that they're voting for? I want to look up his LinkedIn. Election of directors.
Let me pull.
Was it
Jamil Juwan, something like that.
Okay, Jamil Juwan. All right, I'm going to look this guy up. New Mexico. He's 46 and he's from New Mexico.
Jamil Janujwa.
All right, I want to check out this
He's
guy's
right in the whole
LinkedIn.
Brumder group age.
Brother.
And the last one is approval of employee stock purchase plan. To approve New Horizon.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get them paid.
Employee stock purchase plan. Who are the employees that are going to be getting paid? Do you know about this?
Yeah, it's basically the same rundown as last year. You know, Brandon gets so much. They can purchase so much. They get issued so much just for performance, stuff like that.
Yeah, they deserve it because I've been going on Google Maps checking out the hangar, and they ain't rolling around in no Bentleys. You know what I'm saying? It'd be nice to see some Honda Civics up in there.
Yeah, this Jamil Janjua. He's quite the stud. He's
man, he's
pilot.
a badass.
He's his LinkedIn says he is a pilot astronaut, Wharton MBA Palmer Scholar, an MIT engineer, a former military fighter pilot and veteran of 84 combat missions, and also served as an experimental test pilot. Yeah, he's
gold.
He's got some accomplishments. He was a test pilot for Virgin Galactic, test pilot for Calspan Corporation. I don't know who that's Edwards, California, so that's most likely like a contract house for Edwards Air Force Base, experimental test pilot for the US Air Force. And then I think he is probably Canadian though. He he was a fighter pilot exchange officer for the Royal Air Force Department of Defense for the Canadian Air Force. So yeah, that's a good get.
Makes sense why they took down the we're going to need a pilot in 12 months ad on LinkedIn. Like, it looks like they found their pilot. Shit, put that guy in there.
Yeah, man, this guy's gold for sure.
He'll probably run their he'll probably be their chief test pilot in time. And which is important. You want this type of individual right now in the development, especially where you're developing just the control logic and the human interface of the control systems. When I actually started my career on the F-35 program, like we were there was a lot of debate on how do you control the STOVL in and you know what inceptors actually control what. So I'm sure he'll be instrumental in that. I'm curious if he flew the F-35. But that's one of my opinions about, and it would be kind of cool to do a deep dive, would be to, like, I wish these companies would release who their engineering teams are. Like, okay, who's your chief engineer? I just spent the weekend with a colleague of mine who, he's been in the industry for 15 years, but he knows all about test evaluation, test plan certification. And we were talking about it, and we both agreed, like, you don't want somebody with you may look at one of these companies and this person's got a PhD and in flight physics and blah, 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 but they only graduated 5 years ago. You don't want somebody like that. You want someone like who has gone through test pilot school, who's flown hardware, who is, you want someone with a lot of experience. So on the pilot side and the test pilot side, this is a really good get. And it'll be cool to see how their team, their engineering team really starts to fill out of who's who on HOVR's side.
Very cool. Yeah, Jackson says that sounds solid. Seasoned. He is a seasoned recruit to the team. And he's also asking if anyone wants to disclose, are any of you guys holding over 20,000 shares? Personally, I don't yet. I wish I did, but that would be a nice goal to get there. Can't speak for the rest of the team here, but
I'm very open about my poverty level currently. I'm very open about my poverty level. I have 41,000 shares of HOVR, and when Brandon Robinson whips the secret sauce with his dad up into an airplane that they're selling to South America and Ireland for the air ambulance program systems, I will no longer be in the poverty level, and I appreciate them and their hard work for that. And I'm going to keep making really good financial decisions in my life so that I can hold my 41,000 shares that I'll be getting more of till so it can come to full fruition. Because I don't want to be one of those people that get like bad news and then they got to sell their stock too early. I don't want to be that guy.
shout out to Jackson being one of the only ones here, and OG Whale to join us on the comments. He says, "Good drop, Mark," and "Damn, son," probably about your 41,000 shares. And yeah, so we have what's the last one? So the last vote was about diluting us to give some money to the employees.
Pay them.
What do you guys think of that? Approval of employee stock purchase plan.
Yeah,
Just
so
to be
like
clear,
they buy
that
the
means
options or whatever, but then they have to vest for so many years before they can actually exercise them.
so it's like the warrants or something.
Kind of. It's an option, like an executive option. So think of like a
Okay.
stock option. So they're getting these options. They buy them for X amount of dollars, but then they have to wait so many years for them to mature before they can cash them in, or else you get like penalties, or maybe you can't do it. I don't know how the language written, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah, a lot of time with tech companies. That's what you do is you get issued. It's like the sign-on bonus. It's to attract talent, and you can say, all right, well, we're going to give you 50,000 shares, but you have to stay with us for 2 years. And if you leave before that 2-year period, you negate your shares. After
Nice.
that 2-year period, you're welcome to sell your shares at whatever market value they are.
Right.
So
But by then, hopefully, they're invested in the company and want to stay, and they like what they're doing, and it's a win-win basically. They're incented to grow the company and help the thing scale to obviously grow their shares. So
yeah.
okay, it
And well,
sounds
and
pretty
that's
good.
also a good indicator of if a company is healthy and its employees believe in the product that they're doing and the program, they'll stick around, um, and also hold on to their shares because they say, well, why would I sell this at 4 when I actually feel it's going to be 50 someday? And this is how you can really get rich in engineering, is because most engineers, you don't get rich just by being an engineer. You can make a comfortable life, but you're not going to be, buying a Ferrari or a house on the water, um, unless you get in with a small growth company like this, and you they issue you all these shares, and the shares are really inexpensive, but the company grows. You grow then with the company as well.
That's a great point.
That's the beauty of America. That's the American way, baby. Capitalism.
Sure.
No, that's a good point though, actually, because I mean, like most people are not going to go and start their own business, especially engineers. They probably have all sorts of ideas and stuff, but they don't know how to start their own thing. But they could easily join a company that they believe in that's going the right direction. So if you're an engineer and you're interested in eVTOLs, well, it's your choice. Where do you want to go? You want to go to Archer? You want to go to Chobe? Or do you believe in a hover?
Yeah.
And that way they they grow with the company. Yeah, so obviously they do
But
want
that's,
equity. That makes sense.
when these companies start out, they plan how many shares do we want to have reserved for incentive like this. They will literally just hold off a percentage of the company and say we're not, these shares aren't going on the market. We're holding these shares, and then we will issue these to employees as incentives.
That's right. Yeah, that's what all the greatest companies does, right? Yeah, Tesla, Palantir is doing that. People all like Palantir and want to go work there now. Yeah.
There's a lot of engineers in the Bay Area that, in the 90s got deals like this with Microsoft or Apple, and or companies just in the very beginning, and now they're ridiculously rich. They're retired.
Jackson looks like he agrees with you. He says that's right, Mark. We have engineers here where I work that get stock options.
Yep.
Where do you work, Jackson? I guess,
If you'll say.
are you an engineer? Yeah, if he'll say. He might say. We got not many people on the stream here.
Yeah, I
Nothing
think
to
too
hide.
the ability to predict the future. There's prediction, and then there's your analysis of what happened and all that stuff. But I will say, I really this whole EVTOL 2.0, why they picked hybrid, and if you got 3 battalions going into enemy warfare and 2 of them jump in, and then you get to watch and see how it all goes down, and then you go in a little bit later, you got less casualties. It's just a natural mathematical fact. So, I like that. It gives me an extra 2 minutes of good sleep at night.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I want to add John Maris. I'm looking at his LinkedIn. He is also a test pilot, and he is a human factors specialist. And he's also got links with some of the people that I've worked with in the past. So he seems like he's got his stuff together as well. He's a PhD, so a lot of times you'll have PhDs and things like human factors just because it's a very, very specialized subset of aerospace. So both of these people are certainly good gets. And yeah, he's Cert Center Canada. So that will also a very good get.
Yeah, that's what I first learned about him, and that's why I thought he was a great add to the team because of
Yeah.
Center Canada.
Can I ask you guys a question? That brigade, Canadian Air Force that went to the hangar and stuff like that. I was talking to Tom, and he said that that's not haphazard type stuff. They don't just they had to get approval to go there and stuff like that. Like, what extent do you think that's like good? Like, it's obviously good. Is there more good beyond what meets the eye, or is it pretty face value good?
Good question. I'm not too sure. That smells good.
I would leave it at face value good until it's unbelievably good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, when a brigadier general shows up, I think he was a brigadier general. Yeah, when he comes and actually tours your facility and goes on their PR, is willing to be interviewed and then it's released through their own PR system. Yeah, that's certainly very positive. Considering too how I think the temperature of the room between our two countries, I think Canada is probably looking to be like, all right, we need to, and just all of the NATO countries are like, well, maybe we need to start looking at our own defense a little bit more and not be so reliant on the United States. So that's, I mean, this space is especially from the military side I think is going to grow in leaps and bounds, and it's either you're going to get left behind or you have to really advance ahead. So they've got a very good possibility, I think, of starting to get military contracts as well. It could take a little bit of time, but the people that they are aligning themselves with, I think, is probably the biggest thing. Like, You know, knowing someone who's gone through the test pilot school, well, then they went through, and not only that, but then Brandon as well, who's an ex-fighter pilot. These people all run in the same circles. It's not like, it's not like you could, people would be like, hey, you ever heard of this Brandon Robinson guy? Did he actually really fly an F-18? It's like, yeah, no shit. He actually did fly it, and he is for real, and he knows a lot of people. So they're all really positive indicators. They're just really early right now. But
That's
that
okay.
doesn't but that doesn't mean they can be like if there's a need and they feel they can meet that need, they could theoretically really start scaling up.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw this interview with this guy earlier today who's a house flipper, and he bought a house that needed a lot of work for $40,000, and then he thought it would just take $40,000 to fix it, but it ended up costing $80,000, which was $120,000. And they put it on the market and he worked on it for a year of his life. He worked on it, and then he listed it for 200,000. Nobody bought it. 190. Nobody bought it, and then he ended up selling it for exactly what he paid. He sold it for $120,000. So he spent a year of his life, and he broke even. But that was 7 years ago, and if he would have held on to the house, it was worth like 900,000 today if he just would have held on
Yeah.
to it instead of trying to do the quick
Yeah.
flip. So that kind of mentality, it's like you got stocks, jamming 500% a day. Everybody's watching Beyond Meat videos. Their dopamines are firing. They want that quick hit. And it's like it's gonna go down, up, whatever. But I like HOVR's chances of success.
I like that analogy a lot, actually. That is a great representation of how the stock market works. In the long run, you're good. Just wait it out. I guess as long as you pick good companies, but
As long as you pick good companies.
Yeah. Yeah.
I waited out, you're right. I have learned, at least in my failures in being in the stock market over the last 10 years, is sometimes when the hair on the back of your neck is standing up, or when the herd is also like saying, no, this is a dying company, like you should heed that call. And like sometimes it's good to go against the herd, but also sometimes it's good to just like, my example was I had invested, this was back in 2008, like 7 and 8, and I was living in Texas, so of course they had the big natural gas boom, and I invested pretty heavily in, I can't remember the name of the company now. It was a natural gas company. It was all about a natural gas play. And of course, when the market tanked in 2008, 2009, all of those companies tanked. And I was just like, you know, I was going down my own rabbit hole of, oh, there's going to be a grand solar minimum, and we're going to get kicked into an ice age in the next couple. Like I was just gripping for hope in any place I could, hoping that we'd need natural gas, And I'm like begging for, we need to start liquefying, and maybe this will help. And sure enough, the company went bankrupt, and I lost everything. And I mean, I didn't lose everything, but I lost everything that I had in the company.
Yeah.
So, and of course, people were like, "This is not good. This is not good." And I should have heeded that call. But in respect to now with eVTOLs and with just vertical mobility in general, regardless of the size and scale, I really believe this is the next wave of aviation and mobility in general.
Mhm.
It really feels like we're getting a new personal computer. We used to have computers in rooms and no one had their own, and now there's the talk of, well, all right, now there's this new thing coming along called a personal computer.
yeah, I like that analogy. Spoke about that with Mark a little
Yeah.
before. Like, I was thinking even further. Um, um, Cars, right? Cars were also like there were no roads. there were barely any cars. It was just for like really rich people. And eventually it scales down to everyone. Or not even just really rich, probably just for corporations and stuff. And it takes some sort of radical shift, something to happen that scales the technology eventually to everyone. In the case of cars, it was Henry Ford creating the Model T, and also some societal shifts. He created the weekend, and people had a use for cars, and they had pleasure. They had reasons to go out. Before the weekend, there was almost like no reason to go out. Like after that, things, restaurants and stuff and parks and stuff started happening.
Parks, yeah.
And different things started happening. And same with the PC, like, online shopping and AI and so many other things scale on later that you can't even imagine. Like we're just talking about air taxis,
online dating
and military now. But
OnlyFans.
But what I like to think with eVTOLs is like, what are the societal shifts that will happen? Like, okay, we're talking about moving around people, moving some cargoes, but I think that's going to make people live further. People will stop living in cities. People are going to start living far away. It's going to be very easy to live on an island. It's going to be very easy to get stuff on an island in and out. People are going to have friends further around the world. You're not going to have your friends so local, like just like we're friends. Like we'll be able to just, instead of doing this, just come hang out for the weekend or whatever.
Yep.
So basically what you're saying is people are going to be able to live amazing lives like Mark Berry.
At a fraction of the cost.
Yes. What I'm saying is there are technological revolutions that create exponential, net goods to society. Yeah. And this whole eVTOL industry is going to be creating things we can't even imagine. And I'm just thinking of a few of them that I don't think many people think about. Like, I think it's going to take away from cities. People are going to stop living in cities. I think that's a big one. And that's just one example that's going to be, 10 times other things we can't even imagine, right? Like no one imagined AI when the internet started. I mean, very few people, the concept existed, right? But it wasn't practical. Slowly in 10 plus years, it's going to be very practical to just, go live in Bahamas or whatever, Bimini or whatever, and still live a normal life in Florida, have business or whatever. And, obviously it's going to be for the very rich at first, but these things scale down to everyone. And while everyone might not have their own plane, you're just going to still, just like you order an Uber, like the young generation today, I didn't realize till recent, they don't have cars. They don't know how to drive. Like it's crazy. Everyone just uses Ubers.
Which makes me wonder, how are the automotive companies like Ford, and obviously you see Tesla is pushing this whole autonomy and Tesla's driving how quickly, or Tesla's really pushing the market of affordability too, with how they're going to be able to scale, how they're going to be able to scale inexpensive cars and how quickly they can produce them. I saw a thing that they were going to be able to produce one every 5 to 10 seconds, as where right now the standard is like every 40 seconds to a minute. And that's a game changer. So I question, okay, how is Ford going to keep up? Like, and what does their business model look like in 5 years? Will they even produce?
No, they can't keep up. People have been speaking about it for years. These companies will go bankrupt. Tesla's.
So will Ford? Is Ford then going to say, all right, well, we need to shift, and maybe we need to start investing in other technologies elsewhere, like vertical mobility?
No, Ford's going to die. That's it.
Companies, you think they'll die? You think they'll just die?
100-year-old companies always go away. They can't stay out forever.
I just want to say something real quick to tie into what you were saying, Matan, about people moving away from the cities. Don't forget, I sent you that video with Trump talking about the EVTOLs and the 10 freedom cities, and putting some cities in the country and desolate rural places and stuff like that. So hey, We getting them $2,000 stimulus checks though. I like that. I'm gonna get me some more hover, baby. We're gonna be at 42,000 shares. Shit.
Are we getting stimulus checks?
Yeah, a tariff rebate. No printed money. Putting it back into the community.
Like, is that something that's announced, or are they talking about it?
Trump said it.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know.
It means it's 99.9% true.
All right. We'll see.
Mark, we have a question for you. Let me get back to well, actually, I didn't really read to the comments from here. Jackson says he works for a major oil company based out of the U.S.
Okay. It'd be interesting to see what Jackson thinks then of vertical mobility for, say, like oil rigs out on the Gulf, or even if you're like that was something. Again, when I was in Texas, a friend of mine worked for an oil company, and all he did was delivered drill bits. Like if a drill bit broke, these drill bits are crazy and they're crazy expensive. They weigh like 500 pounds or a couple 100 pounds. And when one would break or when one went bad, they only had a limited amount of time to like get a new drill bit out into the field and immediately, so they can't stop the drilling operation, or interrupt the drilling operation. So, and again, another use case for something that can lift only 500 to 1,000 pounds. You'd be like, hey, we got a drill bit busted. And okay, we can get you one. It's 200 miles away. And instead of having to drive it over all this rough terrain, you just just fly it directly to the site.
That's badass.
Win-win. Yeah, honestly, that's the thing with revolutionary technology. Technology always wins. It's just it helps in so many ways you can't even imagine. It's just net good. Like when we were at the SCWO facility, like something I didn't realize was okay, not only they're destroying PFAS, but which is good for the environment and stuff, but so many other things that cost money that I didn't assume. Like, okay, the alternative right now is trucks. They have to pay for trucks, drivers, there's logistics, there's insurance, there's a lot of other costs are associated around everything that's like you're cutting a lot of cost. It's just a bunch of net positives. And I don't know, you can't even imagine like how much.
Another aspect too that I think eVTOLs are going to become much more affordable for the common person, because if they're a segregated system, they'll be far more safe to operate than like what I flew in today. Like today I just got back from a flight and I flew from North Carolina, landed in Savannah, dropped off my friend, and then I continued on for just the 10-minute flight to my airport here that I live near. And I mean, I didn't get above 2,000 feet. It's dark. There's a big thunderstorm out over the Atlantic. If I'd lost my engine, I'd be sitting in a marsh right now, and hopefully not upside down. If with an eVTOL or a segregated vertical lift and propulsor system, that adds so much factor of safety, because now let's say worst case, I still lost my propulsor and now I have to go down into the marsh. At least I'm going to land in the marsh at a really slow speed and get on my phone and give a coordinates of where I'm at, or I could go land in a field somewhere, and it doesn't destroy the airframe. And that's a really important topic, because insurance for airplanes is only getting more and more and more expensive. I at one point wanted to buy a particular type of airplane and I didn't, because when I saw what the insurance was for it, I was just like, oh, I just can't do this. And insurance is always based on the accident rates. So if eVTOLs don't have large accident rates, because you can engineer and design safety into the overall system, that in itself makes flying far more affordable for everybody. Like I
It
heard,
makes a lot of sense, yeah.
and I heard that, I don't know if it's true, but I heard that if you buy a brand new airplane like a Piper or a Bonanza from one of the legacy aircraft companies, something like 25% to 30% of that purchase price is going towards legal fees because because those companies have all been sued into oblivion. So you're paying for all these really expensive legal fees that they have had to incur over time. Because when someone crashes in an airplane, they sue the mechanic, they sue, the family sues everybody. They sue the engine manufacturer, you sue the airframer, you sue, the mechanic that last worked on it. It's a really difficult industry, just because there's lawyers.
You made me think of something when you said it's going to become more economical. I'm going to tie a couple fun facts in here. Taxi cab companies, they go under due to accidents and getting sued. Like Yellow Cab, they got 3 accidents, millions of dollars lawsuit, and then they had to go down, all that stuff. But you're right. But no, check this out. Check this out. So in San Francisco, to own a taxi cab, you have to pay $250,000 for your permit. So you pay $250,000, you get your medallion, right? So check this out. You're right. If it's $250,000 for one taxi cab, 40 taxi cabs will get you $10 million. You could have 40 taxi cabs, or you could have one Cav X7. And if you look at the debacle, now why was Uber cool? Because it quote unquote upended the taxi industry, right? Which they didn't have enough taxis for the people anyway. There were people waiting 2 hours for a cab. It was crazy. So we did need Uber. That was real. And but the airports, they got their monopoly because they've, just like they did with the cars and the railroads, and they took out all the railroads and stuff, and that used to be big. And then now there's big hub airports, and the regional guys got kind of knocked down a little bit. But what would people have done? Let's shoot out into the future. And there are eVTOLs around. What are people going to be like? I need to go from San Francisco to LA. I got to catch my flight. But oh my God, it's 4 hours. No, I'm just going to hop in this eVTOL. I'll be in LA in 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna move on to the questions a bit, if you guys don't mind. We have a question here from Mark. Hey Mark, Saffron Air has a hybrid PT6 turboprop. They have been flying for at least 2 to 3 years. Just a demonstrator. Think HOVR may be positioned to use Saffron's PT6 hybrid controller.
I don't know. Again, I think that you have segregated systems. They have come out. HOVR has come out and said that they're using the PT6 as their engine that's going to drive them in wingborne flight. And I think that the vertical component and the PT6 component they're not necessarily linked. And I think HOVR will probably go with the less risk averse. Like you want to keep one kind of like the way it's always been done. One of my airplanes, when I bought it, it's experimental, and when I bought it, it had literally an automotive ignition system on it. And after like 2 P leads breaking on the coils and me like losing 2 spark plugs in flight, I was like, okay, I'm getting rid of this, and I just went back to standard magnetos. So there's something to be said that there's the adage in engineering: if it works, don't change it. So I think, but they could potentially they are going to need to generate a lot of power to recharge their batteries in flight. And a PT6 can definitely do that. I don't know if it would definitely need to be a hybrid controller or the hybrid configuration. So, and also if that system is not certified, I don't think HOVR is going to touch it. Like, simply because HOVR is going to have plenty of other activities that they need to certify. They're going to just stick with a standard PT6, which is pretty much tried and true.
Sounds good. So there's your answer. And then he says they'd have a powertrain with 2 or 3 years for flight data they could use towards certification.
Yeah. So with that said, if you've got to go, I mean, certification, certifying new systems is difficult. It takes, or it's not well. It can be difficult, but it's costly. It's very costly. So, and typically, like in an aircraft cert program, if some company comes out and they say, "Oh," and I always use the example of Eclipse, the Eclipse jet. When the Eclipse jet came out in the early like 2005s, 2004s, they said, "Oh, this is going to be so inexpensive to fly. We've got this new engine that is super, super efficient. So we're going to certify this new engine." And it was done through, it was a test engine through NASA. So they said they're going to use that engine. And then they said, "Okay, we're no longer going to rivet the airframe together," which was a standard practice. "We're going to friction stir weld. And we're going to use friction stir welding to actually rivet the skin to the frames." And that's a whole other, like, it's a new thing. And I think they did do friction stir welding, but like when they flew their first prototype, or maybe it was their first airplane or something, the engine was so ridiculously underpowered, and it set them behind years because they literally just had to say, "Okay, we can't use this crap or this engine. It's not certifiable. It's not going to meet our performance parameters." And then they just went to like General Electric. I think they use a GE engine, or maybe they use a Williams International, but they just went with just a standard, "Hey, give us the engine, let us put it on here, and off you go." So, yeah,
Yeah,
sort
so
of,
it was tried
yeah,
and true. Yeah.
yeah, and this is why Matan, when we were talking, when we were in Orlando, I have a lot of reservation about Boom, because Boom does not have an engine, and Boom's been working for 10 years, and you don't really hear about what's going on. And like, there's really nothing about, let's just like, "Okay, you guys gonna, got any more news?" So, but they don't have an engine manufacturer who is, a legacy manufacturer like Rolls-Royce or GE or Pratt and Whitney, um, for their engines, and that's a problem.
Can I ask you a question, Mark?
Yep.
When Brandon says we're starting out in medical and cargo,
Mhm.
um, obviously it's like a Ginsu knife. It's like you can take a knife and you can chop a carrot, you can chop whatever. Like it's kind of funny. Like it's something that flies. Its usage can be nuanced to literally anything. We could take the Super Bowl team from the winning stadium to their city. Like there's an infinity of use cases. But it's like when they say we're starting out with medical and cargo first, do you think there's like a particular practical reason that's the number one go to for the first? Is it almost like if you can do medevac, you can do anything? It's almost like that. Like, damn, this thing cuts through cans of soup. If it can do that, it can do anything.
Yeah, and I mean, to say you're starting out with medevac, I mean, typically medevac, you want it to have all the bells and whistles, especially from an environmental perspective. Like, you want this thing to be fully FIKI certified. You want it to be able to fly full IFR. So in the world of certification, you can get a supplemental type certificate, or a limited type certificate. Um, and this has happened before, like Honda Jet, when they got certified, they got a limited type certificate. So they were not fully FIKI certified, and they delivered their aircraft. So they were able to deliver to customers, but then they had limitations. Like, the customers knew you can't fly in icing conditions, so don't do it. And you could see a phased approach like that, where they could say, "Okay, we're gonna tailor the airplane, we're gonna certify the airplane to meet these particular use cases." But an air ambulance, I mean, that's kind of all the use cases. Like, it's obviously going to be under load because you're going to have all this medical devices. You definitely have a pilot. You're going to have one or two flight medics, and then all this equipment to maintain people as they're on this ride. So, um,
No, but it doesn't have to actually be necessarily that. That's not true. Look
what
what
do you mean?
Okay, Blade right now. Blade is technically 80% medvac, right?
Mm-hmm.
Moving organs, right? That's medvac. Zipline with their plane-looking drones, right? I don't need that.
But Blade is using certified aircraft already.
Yes, but their first use case is moving organs, right? Through
Mm-hmm.
the air. Zipline, their first use case is also moving, all sorts of giving all sorts of treatments in Africa. And now
Mm-hmm.
they're starting Amazon deliveries of packages, right? Cargo,
Mm-hmm.
right? Medvac and then cargo, basically. That's my bet. The first thing is going to be medvac, because it's just the most important. I think if not medvac as first, then before that even is like step 0 is like military. Like that's just like doesn't hides in the shadows. They could do things without us knowing first. It's they got tons of use cases we can't even imagine or know, and they just want it first. They have all the money, they have all the
Mm-hmm.
risk tolerance and experimental, projects, or so to speak. So that could maybe be first, but we maybe not even know about it. So I'm just going to call that 0, whereas medvac is like number 1.
Yeah. Well,
But to that topic, to fly medevac, you're going to need to be certified. You're selling you need to sell a certified aircraft, so they have to go through a full cert program. It's
That's
not like you're going to.
fine, but oh, are you saying they have to go through medvac certification, which is separate from the air
No,
traffic?
it's not. It's just to use the airplane for commercial uses, it's going to have to be certified.
So does it not even matter when we talk about what will be first and stuff? Because will it just be like, okay, the moment it's certified, boom, it opens the door to all use?
Yeah, pretty much.
it's like
I
when you
feel
buy
the
a
same.
car and they got like the regular version, then they got the LX, and then they got the Sport. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like that. It's got a couple extra bells and whistles. And that was my
Yeah.
essential question to Mark. I was like, why is it that Brandon voices? Because he's officially voiced that. Like we could speculate, but he is
Well,
officially voiced.
I
It's going to be medical and cargo first, is what he said, and then
I
you could
think
do it. You
he
could go anywhere.
I think he voices medevac often simply because it's such a important use case that their aircraft can provide in Canada, because Canada does not have a lot of trauma centers. They don't have the number of trauma centers that we have in the United States, right? Like,
Hmm.
I mean, heck, I went to my house on Friday night and there was like all these emergency vehicles down in the valley, and I was like, man, I wonder what's going on down there. And all of a sudden, a helicopter lifted out, and I jumped on flight radar, and someone was getting medevaced out of the valley, and they were going all the way to Spartanburg. But there's, from my location, there was probably a trauma 1 level, or a really big medical center. They could have gone to Spartanburg, they could have gone to Charlotte, they could have gone to, maybe, um, there are multiple places they could have gone. I don't think Canada has. They just don't have the medical facilities. So where Hover really has will have a really effective and immediate impact will be in air ambulances, because they can go such a long distance. You can be way out in the middle. You could be 200, 300 miles from Toronto or Edmonton, or you'd be way the hell up in the Yukon, and they could be like, yeah, we can get that person out of there. So I think he references it a lot simply just because it'll be used very heavily in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah, plus in the end, it's just a thing that can fly, and the use cases are infinite. But like, if
Mhm.
you're successfully pulling the medevac and you're set up for that, like you said, you're pretty much covering everything at that point. You know what I mean? The military
Yeah,
can charge their iPhones and everything. You're good.
yeah. I think if they can do a full medevac mission, they're certified for that. The airframe certified. Now, again, the airframe will get you will certify the aircraft, and then what happens inside of it gets supplemental type certificates.
Mm.
So, and this happens all the time with private jets, where the the airframe is certified, and then it's certified. And typically, like when a customer buys a private jet, like they'll say, yeah, I want this jet, say it's a G500. They'll say, all right, well, I'm buying a G500. Well, then of course Gulfstream is going to go to them and say, okay, congratulations, you bought this G500. Now what do you want inside of it? Do you want, like you said, do you want the LS version? Like, what kind of leather do you want? How do you want your living arrangements to be? And they have type certified like packages. But then if someone comes in and they're like, well, I want this special lighting, or I want something unique that's not certified already, that requires a type certificate, or a supplemental type certificate for the interior. And they'll then have to say, okay, like there's always the joke, like someone wants a shower, like I want to shower in my bathroom. Can you give me a shower? There's all sorts of like FAA like considerations for safety and stuff, when you're naked, wet, and around at 40,000 feet or 50,000 feet. So, or even more crazy, like someone wanted a hot tub once, like, and they bought a 737. They said, I want a hot tub in it. And the FAA basically said, you can have a hot tub, but it just can't have water in it when you take off or land. So they literally were like, okay, you can basically, like, you can take off, and then you can move water from a tank. You could have like a couple of huge
That's
tanks
crazy.
buried somewhere, and you got to pump the water into your hot tub, and then you can sit there and hope you don't hit any turbulence or have to bank hard, right? Or if you do bank hard, you better stay, you better keep the ball centered in the cockpit, because the water's going to slosh all over the place. So, but you could theoretically like get an STC and the point is they were like, no, we can't. We're never going to be able to certify that. Sorry, you just can't have that. So
That's so funny.
you'll certify the airframe to meet all of your advertised performance parameters and characteristics. And then, because again, someone may want to buy a hover. You get someone as, hey, I want my own hover, and I want leather seats. I want Starlink. I want to have a flat screen TV. I want to have all this stuff in it, right? And they did not. That will then require a supplemental type certificate to meet all that stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
in the direction of banging out the two bear cases, can't lift that load and they ain't got no money. And short of having Death Smiles use his supercomputer to backdoor Brandon's laptop to read off of his the camera on his laptop what's in his notebook, right? Because we got to find out what's in that notebook, right? But
Oh yeah,
anyway,
I got a screenshot of that.
ah, that's right. And but no, Barry, Mark, I really I agree with what you said, like regarding the investors know that this stuff's going to cost a lot of money and they're ready for that. You're not going to ask the girl out to the expensive restaurant if you got $5 in your pocket. You know what I'm saying? You better be going out on payday. You know what I mean? And you know what I'm saying? And it's like the investors came to him. It's true. Like people got
Yeah.
PTSD, dude. Like so many dilutions and so many pump and dumps and liars and like so many dudes are in it for the money, like to pump the stock. They're just like, how can we pump this stock and get out? But these guys are in it for the plane, bro. Like that's it. Like they're in it for the
Yeah.
plane, and anything connected to Horizon, they have pride in. Like it's all connected and it's all one big mountain of pride and work ethic. And I think you're 100% right. It's they got the dough and then they do what they do and they make the full scale and they exhaust what they got in the bank for that. And then boom, the next tranche comes in and it's full steam ahead. And that's going to be highly climactic because not only will they have the full scale done and then people will be like, God damn, they did it. But then also next tranche will come in And then at that point, we're talking to de Havilland and Bombardier or Mitsubishi or, Airbus or whoever. And then we're just pumping out the program at that point, and it's fucking, full steam ahead to Valhalla.
Mm-hmm.
Public Oasis is so optimistic on HOVR, as are we. Lord Fubar says the Chinese are putting parachutes on their eVTOLs. Me and Mark spoke about that once. That is a funny thing they're doing, and I wonder what you guys think of that. He also says 99% pilot error, I guess, regarding all those plane crashes or helicopter crashes. What do you think of the parachutes? That I think that's a nice little simple safety feature, but definitely speaks to their unconfidence in their flying machines.
Well, I don't think it's a lack of confidence. It's a lack of design. You have like the Jetson one that Palmer Luckey just bought. That also has a parachute, but it has a parachute for good reason. If for some reason you were flying that thing and you ran into another one, or say just a big bird comes along and you clip it with the rotors, and the rotor and some of those rotors on just one side come apart, that is a very, very now it's not flyable, it's not stable anymore, because EHang, granted EHang is now coming up with a wing-borne airplane. But, and I don't know if the wing-borne airplane will have a parachute on it, but if you have any sort of just a motor failure, right? You're one lug away from, you remember these things are, it's copper. Copper is a weak material. It could vibrate and the lug breaks, and now, oh shit, this motor doesn't, just quit. That thing's gonna fall out of it's gonna fall out of the sky. So you gotta have you need to have a parachute to protect you. Now, the problem is a ballistic recovery system. They're heavy. They weigh like 40 pounds. So 40 to 50 pounds. Cirrus Aircraft, the most popular sold general aviation airplane, and they're gorgeous airplanes to fly, as all of them are certified with ballistic recovery parachutes in them. And they did that because their wing was not certifiable.
How safe are parachutes though if you're flying really low? Because a lot of these little one-seaters are probably flying really low. So like, don't you need a start the parachute at a certain height?
Yeah, you do need to have a bit of. Yeah, it's like, hey, go try to base jump off your 2-story house. See how well that works out, right?
Yeah.
Like, you need to have some height for the thing to deploy, and that is right. Like, I think with Cirrus aircraft, like they want you to have like 1,000 or 1,500 feet of altitude.
Oh, that's a
And
lot.
it's quite a bit. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it'll get there fairly quickly, but yeah, the parachutes are there for that added level of safety, because this is what will happen. No one will, if they didn't have the parachute, and then the first time on, it gets on YouTube that someone gets in their plane, and then, or gets in their EHang, or gets in their Jetson one or whatever, and then you see them fly up, and all of a sudden a big dodo bird comes in and they run into it or something. Just something happens and it goes out of control. and you see, and everyone gets to see, firsthand that the human body is like 76% water. We're basically just big, sponges of water, and when we hit the ground from a couple hundred feet up, we just go splat. No one will ever get in one of those airplanes again. They'll be like, no thank you. But if it fails and they pop the chute and they come down and they land and they get off, and they'd be like, well, that sucked, but hey, I'm gonna go home and I have a cocktail now. You can actually then use that as like a sales gimmick and be like, hey, Cirrus does
cool.
that.
That's
if you go
cool
to
commercial.
if you go to Cirrus's website, I believe it says on their website, like they promote every time they have a shoot deployment, and they claim this is how many lives we have saved because our airplanes have parachutes.
Oh, cool.
So
I realized I never actually asked you my question because I had to do a whole prelude to my question to ask you the question about the investors came to them, tranches as they make the progress and all that stuff. So now I get to ask my question because I realized my prelude was like a freaking book. But anyway,
yeah,
The
yeah.
weed.
So my question is this, and I imagine the answer is no, but I'm curious if there's any variation. Have you, since you said that statement, have you seen anything that would veer you off of that concept? You know, with their current share account or anything like that. Anything that have you seen that would veer you off of that fundamental mentality of they got enough money to make it? When they make it, then the next tranche comes in, then we're off to the races. Anything veer you off that or strengthen that viewpoint for you?
from hover, in terms of
Yes.
hover,
Yeah.
no, nothing's varying me at this point. Hover is really, I mean, they're at the beginning stages. Um, but nothing's veering me simply because, like, you look at every time they release something, makes sense in terms of this is logical progress in the process of how you're going to build a concept demonstrator. Like, they're just with who they're hiring. You look at, they're hiring an astronaut and a test pilot. You don't become a test pilot for the U.S. Air Force unless you have an engineering degree. Most likely, it's got to be a aerospace engineering degree. So that guy's skill sets, his entire life has been around just the design, testing, and validation of aircraft. So, like, the gets that they're getting, it's kind of like we're watching. It's preseason. It's preseason, and they just got the draft, and it's like, holy crap, we got 1 and 2 draft picks, the
Mm-hmm.
top 1 and 2, and who did they choose? Well, they chose the best people for who they need right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important. Like, being able to verify who they hire is really important. Being able to look at someone's pedigree and be like, okay, this person has done certification before. This person has done, has done flight testing before. Um, that's really important right now at this phase. So that gives me confidence that they're on the right track.
Have you ever heard of a company or seen anything where there was a company making an aircraft and they had a certain amount of money in the bank and it was enough to get them to the full scale and they did it and then it escalated with further tranches of finance? Has that ever anything similar to that ever happened in history from your recall?
Oh, I mean, yeah, you look at, I mean, we would actually have supersonic private jets right now had Arian not been forced into bankruptcy. But Arian aircraft was a, or Arian was a, it was going to be a supersonic, like, 6-seat private jet. They were building it back in the teens, and um, people, like, I know people that went out. They were in Nevada, out in Reno, Nevada, based in Reno, Nevada, and then they were going to move to Florida for their full production phase. And they were really heavily partnered with Boeing. And for some reason, Boeing kind of crushed the whole thing. But before they did that, people that I spoke to and that I know that have worked there, they were like, we were so close, and they were all just so disappointed when Boeing pulled the plug on that. But that was also during COVID when Boeing pulled the plug. And Boeing was going through a lot of issues at that point with the Max.
Oh yeah.
And yeah,
Damn, I didn't know about that. That's crazy.
but the Arian jet, they had really, really talented people. Everyone was really excited, and they believed, and they were all very confident. And they just couldn't get the next tranche of funding. But that tranche of funding was kind of based off of Boeing, and Boeing was so busy circling the wagon. Um, of just we've got to get a hold of this falling knife.
Yeah, but that's easy to say right now in hindsight. At the time, people were probably like, "Oh, this is working. This is gonna work," and oh, they have Boeing behind their back. Now you're like, "Oh, Boeing is the reason they failed." At the time, everyone's probably like, "Oh, Boeing's got their back. This is a no-brainer, right?"
Publicly, I got to be careful because I may need a job someday from Boeing, but um, uh, I I I'm not a huge fan of Boeing. I think Boeing over the years, I see like there's a whole story about Boeing and how Boeing went from a design and engineering company and a company ran where it was always on the cutting edge of technical advance, and then they became much more of a we're going to become a like they were controlled by engineers, and then they became controlled by the investors or the C-suite, and what's going to make the most money. And that has really been the fall of Boeing. And
Yeah,
Boeing also, I really disagree with a lot of some of their strategies where they go and buy smaller company. Like, Boeing will go and buy up a smaller company that manufactures, say, like just hydraulic valves for the Apache helicopter. Like they'll go and buy that company, and then they will triple the price of the valve, and the government has to pay it. Like you got to keep flying your Apaches. So, and then like I really had a sour taste in my mouth with Boeing and what happened to them or what they did to Bombardier with the C series aircraft. And Boeing pretty much like the C series aircraft was kind of a close competitor to um, the 737. Like it wasn't the same size, but it was getting close. And it's this amazing airplane. And then, but they didn't have a US customer. They couldn't get a US customer. I know this well because I was really investing in Bombardier at the time because I believed in the C series. And they finally got a US customer. Delta put in an order for like 50 of these airplanes. And it was like finally they're going to be in the US market. And Boeing sued Bombardier in the like the WTO, claiming that they were dumping these aircraft on the US market, and that is a trade infringement. And it had to go through like three different courts, and it got through the first two courts and Boeing had won. And then it had to go to like this final court. And like the day before that court hearing or that announcement were to happen, Bombardier was just like, we're selling the C series to Airbus, and because we can't take this risk anymore. And they pretty much just completely
damn.
exited out of that market. Like Bombardier would be a completely different company today had Boeing not litigated them into this jeopardy. And I mean, I guess, I mean, business is warfare, right? But in the
Yeah, but
meantime,
that's with government intervention, and the only
it
reason shit like
is,
that happens is because government's like, all right, we'll pay triple the price, and
well,
they're buying
it,
out these companies, and
it can
they're
be,
doing
yeah.
whatever the hell.
In some instances, yes, but in other instances, like I mean, the this is why Palmer Luckey in Anduril is so profound right now because it hasn't happened in 50 years where a defense contractor has popped up and said, I can do this cheaper, faster, and better than the other guys. And the other guys are Lockheed Martin and Boeing and Raytheon. And Palmer Luckey, similar to Elon Musk, said, I'm going to spend my money to do this. And I'm going to prove you guys wrong that you're this enormous behemoth when I can be a like a fast attack sub, or I can be something far more efficient and far more valuable to to the government or the customer. So,
and you know where that comes from? That comes from actually giving a fuck. Because they actually give a fuck.
yeah.
They started the companies. They're doing their mission. I mean, how old is Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon? They're
Yeah,
not original founders aren't there. You just have some paid CEOs that just want to make, their biggest bang for their buck.
the
And so does
CEO,
everyone else around them, probably.
I mean, we love capitalism, but then we also hate capitalism too, in the sense that when you're the CEO of Boeing, your compensation is based on the stock price. And how can you jack this stock price up? And then you start making decisions. Well, okay, we can cut corners in engineering, or we can cut corners on the technical side because we can save this much and we can beat our competitor to the race, and I get my
But
big
that's all just
compensation.
short term. That's just the short term. That's a
But
difference.
That's true.
it is short term, but it's large corporate America. It happens everywhere. I mean, look at the what happened with like Bear Stearns or Enron I'm not, believe me, I'm a capitalist. I absolutely
Yeah.
love capitalism, and I'm all for it, but I'm also for um fair, like, competition. And that's my example, is I think, like, right on for Palmer Luckey or Elon Musk I mean, what a slap in the face Elon did. But I mean, he basically just, you know, pulled out his dick and slapped it on the table when he was like, well, we can come rescue you guys from space because the Boeing jet or the Boeing, thing is leaking and didn't work, and they didn't have a level of confidence that that thing would return astronauts safely. And SpaceX had to go and rescue him. This is the guy that got laughed at by the Russians and said, you could never build a space company, or are you nuts? So I love it. That in itself is the American spirit, and a capitalistic spirit as well.
What you said made me think of something. You know how people always say the first couple albums of a band are always their best, and then the later
That's a
ones kind
great
of
point.
suck,
That's a
right?
great
Because
point.
like
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
because look at it like this: sanity is more long term. Insanity is more short term. Like, what do I want now? What's going to give me pleasure now? Versus
Yeah.
like, what's the long look? That's sanity, right? So it's
Hmm.
like you're right. Like the guys that founded the company, the guys that made the thing, that was long look. That was sanity. And then
Yeah.
you get into the insane aspects of capitalism, which is the unethical aspects of capitalism, which gets into the whole like, let's just cut corners to pump the price and lie to people and
Yeah.
blow smoke up their a-holes and get the share price to the ceiling. But it's interesting, Horizon, we don't particularly have that situation.
No, and I think, yeah, Brandon seems very genuine. Um, there, I really think, though, just the vertical mobility space in general, there are so many use cases that we can't even see yet. Like,
Hmm.
you talk about hover and it being for medevac, and I know, Matan, you've said, like, I really want to see them focus on medevac. I really think, like, the medevac aspect of it is going to be like, it's like Microsoft Office, and okay, within this Office suite we have Excel, right? And there's a use case for Microsoft, one thing in Microsoft Office. Like,
Hmm.
Hover is going to release this profile, and it's going to have all these different use cases. And some of them we don't even know of yet.
All right,
Yeah.
so just to put the nail in the coffin for bear case number 2, it is highly probable they can make their aircraft for the full scale demonstrator with the amount of money that they have in the bank. It is possible, yes.
Yeah, I think they'll make their demonstrator with what they've got. I think
Yeah.
they've got they have the runway to get it built. Um, but they're gonna need an exorbitant amount of more money to certify.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's how this it's how the game works is you build
Yeah. Yeah.
a demonstrator first.
Yeah.
It's an experimental airplane, and
Yeah.
then from there you certify that.
Yeah.
But
It's
that
like it's like
money will come.
yeah, it's like going on a blind date. They're like, "Hey, we got this really good one for you," and you're like, "I don't even know about this." But then you see her, and then you're like, "Oh, we going to the nice restaurant. We going to the nice restaurant with this
There you
one
go.
right here." You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because they could have brought out something else, and we go into In-N-Out Burger real quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, you're right though, bro. Like that's the plan is that simple. People are shocked by simplicity because they don't think it's true. It's like just like you're saying, all the bells and whistles of the latter parts of everything, the lies and just caring about the money and everything, but it's really that simple. They make the airplane with the money they got in the bank, boom, full scale.
Hmm.
Everybody's going to be like, "Damn, that thing's beautiful. Look at it going. Let's get the stopwatch out. Damn, look at that thing go 350 miles an hour. Jesus Christ. Whoa, it lives. They'll put the plates in there. They'll be like, look, this is, four Dallas Cowboys offensive linemen's up in here. Let's lift that bad boy. Oh, that was 1,300 pounds. Hot damn. And then it's like, whoa, here comes the next trench. Bring out the troops.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anthony, your analogies are something. We have Vast CNC up in the live.
Hey, what's
What's
up,
up,
Vass?
Vast? He says the company has a horrendous name. LOL, Aryan.
Oh,
I thought
Arian.
that
Yeah.
too. I thought that
Yeah.
too.
Like Aryan race. Is that what?
Yeah. That's the handshake for the Aryan Brotherhood. It's like that.
Maybe, maybe,
Fucking
maybe, maybe that's why Boeing wanted to deleverage from it. So
Jackson said, not to mention the weather ice, hovercraft will be able to fly in other environments that others cannot. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That is
yes,
honestly a
that's
big
like
reason
that's like
why.
having a woman that never has that time of the month.
I,
You know what I'm
I
saying?
do, I
Yeah.
do, I do find it interesting that on the conference call for Joby, um, they had asked about with autonomy, are they then going to now start doing an IFR platform? And I always thought it would be IFR. Like it really limits you if you're not IFR capable. If they're going to be VFR only, um, both Archer or Joby, you know, I mean, I almost had to file tonight to fly back and file an IFR flight plan because there was weather. And if you this was actually when I went, a few months back, I went to Covington, where Liam for the Hustle Brothers, and I did like a live stream, and I spoke to one of the pilots there, and he said, "Yeah, these airplane aren't going to be. They're going to be VFR only, visual flight rule, and it really is going to limit you
Hmm.
because weather is always changing."
Yeah, they could pretty
Um,
much just only fly like under the sun belt. Hover
you
will have like
you cannot fly in clouds, so. And I don't think it's that hard to get an IFR certification. So I'm a bit curious why they're not doing that. Because they asked Joe Bin on the call, and he didn't. He kind of dodged the question, which just leads me to think like, why are they not doing an IFR certified airplane? It's not overly difficult to. And it. I
and what
mean,
did he
whether
answer in the call? Why are they not doing it?
I can't remember. I would have liked to have heard him just say, "We're going to do an IFR certified airplane," but I don't for because that is the answer. It's either you're either doing it or you're not.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
it's
if
like
you're
you're
not,
either pregnant or you're not pregnant.
that
So
I'm really curious why not. There must be a very strategic reason. Like
yeah,
that's
I
really
don't.
weird.
It could potentially be just their certification is far more complex then because you have to then maybe certify it like a helicopter and certify it as an airplane. I don't know. If we ever got on a, let me dig into that and see if I can find out why they're not neither Joby or Archer are being certified for
that'd be really
IFR conditioning.
interesting because they are the leaders. So like,
They
why?
are, yeah.
Really interesting.
There's
Strategic
how many of there's so there's known icing, and then there's the one that you were just talking about. How
Instrument
many?
flight rule.
Yeah.
No,
So how many different ones are there?
So, well, you mean certifications or just
Yeah,
different level
yeah. Like
or different flight rules?
different levels of flight rules. Like you can go in
Yeah.
ice, or like you can't go in the rain, or it's got to be a beautiful day. Like how many different levels are there?
Yeah. So you basically have VFR, which is visual flight rule. And what that means is depending on the airspace that you're in, there's limitations to how close you can fly to clouds. So if you are in, just regular old classy airspace, it's 1,000 feet below, or it's 152. So I think it's 1,000. It's 1,000 below, it's 500 above, and 2,000 feet separation. Like that's how far you have to maintain distance from a cloud. You
Okay.
cannot go in. You can't go into a cloud. You're not allowed to. If you do it, you're actually busting your license. So that's VFR,
Okay,
and
VFR.
then IFR. And the reason that is because you are relying on your eyes to not run into anybody else. So of course, if you're in a cloud, you can't see shit and you can run into anything. When you're IFR, you are actually under an IFR flight plan. So you submit the flight plan, and then you are under radar control. And a radar controller is guiding you through the clouds that you can't see. And the radar controller is responsible for providing separation from you to other aircraft, and also providing safe altitudes that you will not run into the ground. And then on IFR flight plans, there's all like when you get your instrument rating, the majority of your instrument rating is learning how to fly different landing approaches. So everyone, they hear about ILS approaches. Like we're going to shoot the ILS, and then there's like RNAV approaches, and that's using GPS. But you literally fly to these waypoints at certain altitudes, and then you fly down a corridor, or you fly down at a certain descent rate and over distance, and then when you pop out, the runway's right there and you land, and you have safely now transitioned from a non-visual to a visual. And so that's IFR. And so like there's fog in the Bay Area, or there's fog, and there's all sorts of fog in Southern California, right? So that there's going to be a good portion of time to be like, well, we can't fly these airplanes. Now, FICI certification is just, it's exactly what it is. If you have icing conditions, so you could be flying through a cloud, or you could be flying through rain, but it's right at the freezing temperature, or just it's snowing outside, and that snow is going to stick to your airplane just like it sticks to your windshield, and you don't have windshield wipers, right? So you have to have systems on the airplane to melt it, or knock the ice off. So typically you have heaters, or you've got boots that like expand, and it breaks away just the same way. Like you've got your um you make ice, in your freezer. You dump a bunch of water in the ice maker, the ice trays. Well, how do you get them out of the ice trays? You just bend the ice tray a little bit, and they all break away. It's
Yeah.
the exact same concept for ice on an airplane. They got these rubber boots on the leading edges, and all they do is they pump air into those boots, and they expand a little bit, and all the ice just breaks off. And now,
What?
yeah, yeah.
I
That's
didn't know that.
that's
That's
yeah.
cool.
So that's on the airplanes like a King Air, or well, that's one way to do it. Like a Cirrus, which is a general aviation airplane, they actually have ethylene glycol. Like you actually pick up, like it's like antifreeze,
Yeah.
and that gets pumped out into the leading edge, and it goes through these tiny little porous like micro holes on the leading edge, and that keeps the ice off as well. You're basically like de-icing the airplane in flight. And
And
then if you get in,
that's the one HOVR's going to do that, right? That plus the heat's going to melt it. But that's what HOVR's doing, right?
I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. Like there's all sorts Honda Jet on their horizontal. They do it like Honda Jet does a mix. They're pulling heat off the engine. A jet engine has three phases. It's got the compression phase, the burner phase, and then the blow phase. Well, when you compress a gas, the gas gets hot. So on the last compression stage of the engine, there's literally a hole in it, and it's a bleed port. You can bleed that high temperature, high pressure air that's just been compressed by the engine. You can bleed some of that off, and then you route that air through the airplane, and it gets routed out to the leading edge. And for Honda Jet, it gets routed out to the leading edge, and it gets routed to the engine cowling. So like the front of the engine, that shit gets really hot, and that's what keeps ice from ever collecting on it. It's actually designed to where like when water droplets hit it, it almost immediately like vaporizes because of the speed you're at and the temperature is at. But
Wow.
then Honda also has these things, they're called thumpers. And on the horizontal, the horizontal aft tail, they have these things that actually just like sit there and they'll thump the structure. And it like, it's like this high frequency thumping thing, and it actually just knocks the ice off of it. And that's a certified system as well.
Wow.
So,
Pretty cool.
but so
What's the
Fiki,
cheapest one though? Probably.
it's tough to say because all of them have different design characteristics. Like if you're bleeding, if you have a really small engine, getting bleed air for that engine, getting bleed air off of it can be costly because you're literally taking away the efficiency of the engine itself. So there's that, and then you got to run like you got to run ECS ducts, like big tubes all throughout the airplane to route that hot air throughout the airplane. So there's that's one trade-off, but it works really well too because it's hot and it's always there because the engine's running. You could theoretically have like electrical blankets that would just get really hot. Okay, well now you got to run a generator. You got to. It's all a function of energy. So I think the thumpers are pretty effective, but they're also kind of new as well.
Very cool.
Thanks for clearing that up for me. I didn't know that there was just three. So you got the visual, the non-visual, and end-to-node icing.
Well, remember, end-to-node icing is not it's not necessarily a rating. Like there's two levels of flying rules. There's VFR and IFR.
Okay.
And then you have like just flight end-to-node icing, and that's just a condition the airplane is designed to do or not do. So like my airplanes are not certified.
Good point.
The GA airplanes that I fly are not certified to fly into known icing. So I, as a pilot flying my airplane, if I ever get into it, I do a 180-degree turn and I fly the hell out of it immediately.
Gotcha. Interesting.
I've picked up icing in my experimental once, and I was at 10,000 feet, and I went into a cloud and I picked up a bunch of ice, and very quickly the airplane almost became uncontrollable. Like if I would have stayed in that condition, I would have lost control of the airplane. So it's not something to screw around with.
That's cool. So Anthony, you get it. It's basically like like the pilot gets a license, right? Just like you get a license to drive a car, or maybe there's truck driver licenses, whatever.
Yeah.
But then there's also like the type of vehicle, the aircraft. Can it go into icing? Just like, I don't know, some vehicle.
Yeah, it's just a capability. Think of Fiki as a capability the airplane has. Right.
What was the one that you said you were surprised Archer didn't have just a minute ago? Out of what was the one you were like?
It's Arch. On the Joby's earning call.
Oh, okay.
The analyst asked if they are going to now, with all this autonomy that they're getting involved with, and I think it was linked to the whole like you're teaming with NVIDIA to try to develop more autonomy, blah blah blah. And then they said, the analyst asked, "Are you going to now start pursuing IFR capability?" And he didn't like he kind of, I don't know. I mean, he's not the best speaker anyway because he's an engineer, true and true. But he didn't directly answer. Like it was more like it's something we're working on, and yes, eventually. But in my mind, I'm like, I want to have an IFR rated airplane. Like I want an airplane that's going to be able to fly through that's going to be able to fly through the clouds. Because
Yeah.
if you're a VFR only airplane, I mean, you could have 500-foot ceilings and you're not going to be able to now fly because the weather's
Also,
bad.
think of a user experience. Right now, a lot of helicopters can't fly in bad weathers, and people get mad about that. Like, imagine
Yeah.
just like right now, even with planes, sometimes like there's all sorts of bad weathers, and you have delays or cancellations. Like, how frustrating is that? You booked a vacation and they're telling you can't get on the plane.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that
same
was
thing with this. Imagine, basically what he's explaining is it's just an order of magnitude greater. If you have IFR, you can just fly all the
that's
time.
the comment that the guy at the airport at Covington made. He said, if you got, you're a rich person in New York and you're gonna get on a hover, or you're gonna get on you have a planned trip and you're gonna get on a Joby to go to the airport to fly first class, on a Delta flight, and you make that arrangement weeks in advance, and then the day of the trip, like, oh, sorry, the Joby isn't available because it's not IFR certified and the weather sucks today. Now that person has to, oh crap, what I thought was going to be a 15-minute flight, I now I'm now delayed. I have to leave an hour and a half, 2 hours early to get out to JFK. And he makes a really good point. The guy made a good point because it's like, yeah, that's a very limiting capability. So if whoever, these things need to be, if I was building one of these, I would certify it IFR so that you can fly in conditions.
Above all that, I think the shittiest thing about those are that you go from point A to point B. They have vertiports and they have routes just like airplanes. You can't just go anywhere you want. And I think
Yep.
that's horrible. Like, who's going to use that, really? Like,
Yeah.
seriously, I don't know who's going to use that. It's just like I saw a video recently on YouTube on the Boring Company, that they made those kind of tunnels for in Vegas, and it's just a complete flop. They have like a few 3 or 4 routes or whatever, and
Yeah.
nobody uses them. The routes it's expensive, and it goes literally like you can walk to the place they showed. And it took so long for the car to arrive and pick them up, and the whole experience was just really slow and shitty. And it's like what seemed like some really cool future tech with the Boring Company, in practicality was just not great. And I feel like that's going to be the same thing, honestly, low key, with Archer and Joby. Like, I don't need to go from JFK to, I don't know what route they choose, like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't see the real use case with these little vertiport flights. Like, there's all the other use cases we spoke about that I'm like, are they actually going to do that with IFR or with pilots? They're focused on air taxis. Like, I don't know if they're going to go after, the cargo and the other more interesting stuff.
I got a math equation for you. Okay. So
We're
like I
wrapping
said,
up for 2 hours, by the way. We should wrap things up soon.
Yeah.
Let's.
so if it takes 40 taxi cabs to get one EVTOL, and it's, let's say, $100 to go in a taxi cab from point A to point B, like a couple hour drive or something like that, then you multiply it out, right? That'd be $4,000, right? For 40 taxi cabs $100 ride, $4,000. So theoretically, the math could work out because you can pay off your $250,000 taxi cab with $45 15-minute rides and $100 1 hour ride and all that kind of stuff. You can pay off your $250,000 taxi cab with that. So if you multiplied it out, it would be $4,000 for a 1 hour, hover, Archer, Joby, or whatever. It would, in the long run, multiply out. And if you popped, 4 people in there, $1,000 a person, shit, some people spend $1,000 a person on a dinner. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
No,
if we're going the vertiport thing, it's like, oh, I got my $780 airplane ticket to Puerto Rico. Oh my God, I'm going to spend $1,000 to get to the airport. I got to.
yeah.
So it's possible.
It'll be interesting to see where the space goes in the next 10 years, because you're going to have converging capabilities. You have I'm real curious to see will Joby and Archer, after they get certified, go to more of a hybrid model. Clearly Joby has already demonstrated hybrid, but it's also in hydrogen, and there's no infrastructure for it. But they could, will they go to a hybrid model to be able to compete with Hover and what Hover is setting out to do already? Or will battery technology improve to where you're not going 20 miles, but you can go 200 miles on all electric? And then remember, Matan, you brought it up with when Tesla first came out, one of the biggest arguments was charging stations, right? It's like, well, how do we charge these things? And no one thought it was going to be, how are you going to be able to charge all these things? And it really took a lot, obviously with a lot of effort, but it took a while. So it'll be interesting to see if the all electric stays, or if there's just going to be this, yes, it was really cool that you guys got certified and you moved, you really you were a first mover, and you created a new industry, but now we are very quickly morphing this industry to hybrid until the battery technology catches up. I'm curious,
I think
what happened in 2030? What does 2035 look like? When we're 10 years ahead in battery technology.
I don't know how fast battery technology advances. Maybe you can speak to that more. Is it Moore's laws? Because I've been always hearing of battery tech innovation, and for the longest
still think
time,
hydrogen's going to be the best way to go long term.
The challenge with hydrogen, though, is that it's we already have a power. In the next 10 years, there's going to be so much challenges with power generation, and it requires a lot of power to create hydrogen. And you gotta store hydrogen cryogenically. It requires a lot of energy we don't really have an infrastructure for it unless we're the federal government and you're the military. So for the public, or for public use, I see hydrogen as a challenge. Methanol would be nice, because methanol it burns fairly clean. It's got a really high specific heat, and it's also, you could theoretically recapture the carbon, but I don't know. I'm very curious to see what things will look like. I don't think we're getting rid of hydrocarbons in 10 years. I think it'll be 2050 and we're still going to be drilling for oil.
Regarding batteries, and I'm going to get to some of these comments here, but Jackson says AI and quantum will speed up the knowledge. LOL.
I agree.
I do agree.
Very good point.
But at the same time, okay, you know how your iPhone for the longest time felt like battery hasn't improved. It just lasts for a day, and then you need to charge it every day, right? Mm-hmm. It feels that way always, but obviously the battery has improved, but so has the consumption. We're not using apps that were draining that much battery. Back then it was standard was 8, 16, 32 gigabytes. 64 was max. Now 64 is like, is that even a thing anymore? Like 128 is like a minimum, right? And that's just in storage, right? So just also in compute, and with AI advancing, compute is just going way, way up. So batteries need to get drained more. So obviously batteries are getting better, but they're being used up more. Once these things fly on their own, you're not going to need a pilot. You're going to have, living room couches, TVs. You're going to have so much usage for the batteries, draining the battery. It's not even going to be just a flight anymore. Everyone's going to be charging their phones, playing the latest PlayStation 7 on a 8K screen in their aircraft, wanting a hot tub to power the heated water, right? Who knows the energy consumptions these batteries will need. So
yeah,
just like how iPhones, it feels like it's the same. I don't know how much, unless there's a real like black swan event that with batteries that advances it really to a crazy amount. I really don't. I see hybrid being not only short term, but like really just long term approach. Because also, like we said with the Tesla, bringing it back to the charging stations, what is the alternative everyone's actually using right now is charging in their homes, not charging in the superchargers. Those cost like 2 to 3 times more than charging in your house. So what if you can just land in your, not garage or little hangar, just fuel up with some gas, charge at home with your electricity, solar powered or whatever off the grid, rather than going to a local vertiport, charging over there, flying back to your house. I don't know. I don't see the whole vertiport approach just the way.
yeah.
And to Vast's point here, you didn't miss much about the call. We didn't talk about Archer's acquisition of the airport, actually.
That is badass, though. That is badass that they got that. Was it Hawthorne or whatever?
It is badass, but it doesn't help the mission. I don't know. I think it's distracting, but
I like the airport's cool. A lot of history. I saw a thing about the history of it and stuff. It's cool. You know what I'm saying?
You know what it reminds me of? It's like they're not going after it's like McDonald's, right? McDonald's is actually a real estate company. They have more in real estate than in actually like the business of burgers or whatever. Archer might just be in airports and vertiports and the aircraft thing. I don't know if people are going to be, maybe they'll be building them, but I don't think they'll be, I don't know. Maybe they'll be operators. That's the point with the whole.
Yeah. And I'm not an Archer investor. If I was, I don't know, maybe the news would piss me off or something. I don't know. But I just thought it was cool. Hey, they got an airport. That's cool. Canada should gift Horizon a regional airport. That's a good idea. Just give it to them. You know what I mean? Just give it to them.
Yeah. I think them buying or taking control of the airport. I don't even know if they get to own the land that it's on or not. But I think it's a distraction, and I just don't. And maybe in time, like, I mean, it is really, really freaking valuable land. But like, I listened to the earnings call, and Adam Goldstein was like, "Yeah, you can land a G650 on this." I think the only G650 that ever lands on that airport is like probably Elon Musk's, because I looked at it. It's a small airport, and it is like it's a really small runway. It's a tiny airport. If they decommission the entire airport, the land value may pay them back in time, but it's a distraction. I saw it as just a huge distraction. There was no conversation.
It worked. It distracted me. I was like, "That's cool." I was like, "That's cool." Let me get 10 shares.
But it does nothing towards, like, there was little to no. I don't know.
I don't like that. If that's true,
I'm gonna get on my soapbox because I think that Adam uses words and catchphrases to and it sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but I think it's actually more misleading. Like, he keeps making reference, and he's done it twice now in the earnings call, where he has said nobody has a fully conformed airplane and we're doing a phased approach over 10 different, certificate or TIA criteria. Well, that's exactly what you do. There's like 10 to 20, or there's 10 or 15 different criterias to TIA. So he's pretty much just like, and then he says, we're still, nobody can fully get certified yet because we're still waiting on issue papers. He has specifically brought up issue papers twice in the last 2 earnings calls. And what an issue paper is, like, when there is not a clear path to how to certify something that you are designing as a company, you go to the FAA and you say, hey, we need to know we need definition on how you are going to accept this certification of this particular system or criteria. And then the FAA goes away and they mull it for a while, and then they do an issue paper. And the issue paper is basically the FAA replying back and saying, this is our response. This is what you have to do for us to accept that. That's all an issue paper is. But for Adam to say that, he's basically saying, we don't know exactly how we're going to get certified yet. We are still waiting for the FAA to give us answers. But he is drafting that. He's making that statement that it's an industry-wide thing, that the entire industry does not know how to get certified yet, which is bullshit, because Joby is, just the day prior coming out on their conference call, and they're like, well, we're starting TIA testing in January. And pretty much, and unless they're going to push TIA out for like years while they wait for something, which would be misleading, and I don't think they're doing that. Like Joby's that tells me Joby's much further ahead, and Adam is using diversionary tactics like buying airports, or using catch aviation certification phrases like, oh, we're still waiting on issue papers, which, unless you're a cert person or you've worked in this industry a lot, you'd understand what he's saying. I would love to just be able to ask a question on the call and be like, do you just have a drop dead date of when you think you're going to get this done? Like, they didn't even really discuss there was no talk of redesign. They didn't discuss anything about cert. And it's like,
that was a good question that guy put in the comments there. That was a good question.
What was the question?
It was the one you answered about the airport. Then you went to I do have a question. If you can answer it as quickly as possible. What is there a lot of difference between the Archer and the Joby airplane? Because you know me, I'm all hover, and I my information on the other ones is very limited. But like when I see them, sure, they kind of look a little different. Like Joby's white, and the propellers are up here, kind of more, and then the rotors on the Joby are little. Is there a big difference between their crafts, or are they like pretty similar?
Really? There is, in the sense that all of Joby's propellers and motors are assisting in vertical flight and in horizontal flight. As where with Archer, you have Joby has a novel design in the sense that they have propellers attached to the tail. So all of aviation is a balancing act, right? Like, you get the airplane in the air, and typically you got a main wing, and everything balances on that main wing. That's why you got a tail, so that you can adjust your tail to keep you flying through the air. Well, Archer and all these other companies, they're doing a boom. They got these big booms sticking off the main wing. So you're pretty much supporting all of the airplane based on off your main wing. Well, the problem is the motors in the back are fixed. Like, they don't provide anything in wingborne flight. So, and if you can't stow those away, or you can't hide them somehow in wingborne flight, you've got this enormous drag penalty. I mean, stick your hand out the window. If I'm flying in my airplane and I actually stick my hand, if I could stick my hand out the window, actually I've tried it, Yeah, I mean, I didn't get my whole arm, but you can literally just put your hand out the tiny little window that I've got, and just that amount of drag will slow the airplane down.
What?
Like, oh yeah, you will noticeably see, like, it's amazing how much, like, it's a lot of force on just my hand. It's probably, 10 pounds of force. Well, that 10 pounds of force is a lot of drag. So now take I mean, that's called wetted area. It's the, just the area that's contributing to drag. Now take like 8 rotors that aren't being stowed, and even if they are pointing into the wind, you're still, like, the hub, the rotor itself, all that crap is contributing to drag. So
And this is Archer you're talking about.
this is Archer's airplane, and now Archer has come out and said that they are actually going to a 4 rotor configuration, which tells you that, okay, if one rotor can be pointed into the wind, well, you got 2 more propellers that are pretty much hanging out doing absolutely nothing. It's just it's an inefficient design. Like, we talk a lot in engineering, like, is this an efficient design, or is this an inefficient design?
Anthony, versus Joby's, basically they're rotating, right? They have
all of
theirs all are rotating. Archer has 4 propellers in the back just for vertical, and then in the front for moving forward, right? So when you're going horizontally, the front ones are flying and the back ones are basically not doing anything, just a bunch of drag. They're only used for up and down, right? Versus Joby's are used for both because they're rotating.
Why did they do that? What was the smart idea behind that, you think?
It's interesting. A
they
lot
got an
of them
engineer, Jobin.
No. The Joby one makes sense. They're all being used, 0 waste, 0 drag, because they're working. But why did Archer go with the drag and the rotors?
I don't know. I think it may have just been, like, it's kind of funny. They're in sometimes, like a wing and tail airplane is not the most efficient airplane. Like, my airplanes that I fly, they're not efficient because the tail is actually producing downward force instead of upward force. Now, if you get a canard airplane, like a hover, the hover with a forward canard, all of the surfaces are actually contributing lift. They're all lifting upward instead of this balancing act of, you got an engine in the front making you want to pivot down. So then your tail has to push, has to push downward to keep you, centered about your center of lift, which is on the main wing. So, but we've been flying airplanes like that for the last hundred of years, because it's what's worked. So it may have literally just been, well, this is what everybody else is doing. This is a quick way to get this done. Let's do a boom design. Because I think a lot of other aircraft are doing it that way. Like, you look at Ehang's piece of crap. Look at Beta now. They're all, like, on booms. And Joby is the only company where all of their propellers rotate upward and contribute not only to just vertical flight, but then contribute to flight controls too. Those things are moving independently to keep the thing flying properly through the air.
Oh, that's cool.
So I think I think Joby has just a better design and is, or is an overall better design.
Cool.
But I also don't think that, but there are some trade-offs though. And Brandon has talked about this. One of the big benefits of having ducted fans is that duct is a big protected area. So if one of those fans were to break, pretty much it stays contained inside the duct and it gets shit out the bottom, and everything's fine. Your other fans kick in and you're okay. Like, if Joby had a blade off situation, where all those propellers are spinning, if one of those things were to fail and then it went into the other propeller, now that propeller is you get a cascade effect, and immediately that whole thing can be just it would crash. So
Are they doing a parachute? Are they doing a parachute?
Well, plus
No,
it would get
no.
shaky as hell.
It would, yeah. Oh, that's just it. Yeah, if you have a blade off too, and there is that question there too. Like if you have a blade off event with one of those aircraft, what happens to just the how much is it going to vibrate, and is it going to fail? Now, granted, their blades are extremely light. Like they're unbelievably lightweight composite blades, so you could potentially lose a blade, and it's not going to like rip the whole motor off the pylon. But there is concerns about the cascade effect of if you lost one blade and it went into the other propellers, and now you've lost, the entire side. That's going to become a really inefficient glider at that point. As long as you're not, if you're in wingborne flight, if you're in vertical flight, it's just going to become uncontrollable.
Yeah, because
So,
these things have no actual wings.
yeah,
Well,
well, they do
they're
have wings. I mean, they do fly on. Joby does fly on a wing, and Archer does fly. There is wingborne flight, which makes them, efficient. But but with that too, that's why you have testing. Like these blades are tested. It's very, very rare that a propeller blade just comes flying off. Like we've been flying with, constant speed props. I mean, there's all sorts of mechanical movement and things going on inside that prop and hub, and they don't come apart. So
makes sense.
yeah.
This is maybe a bad example, but I obviously don't see stuff like that a lot. But looking right now at your camera behind you, the fan spinning around you, everyone's experienced and seen fans. I've never
Mhm.
seen like a blade of a fan just
That's
fly
right.
out, right?
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
You
You're
also
exactly
don't
right.
have big ass birds flying in your living room too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Good point.
You
And
just
you do make a good point. Yeah, if you hit
Yeah.
something, you hit a bird, and I mean, for the most part, the bird will probably lose the fight.
yeah.
Um, but
Stuff
um,
happens though. It could be a good
what
goddamn
what
coconut or something. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
it could be. Yeah, yeah. So
But we've
I
all
saw.
tried when you're a kid to throw something at the fan and the fan doesn't break, the thing flies out.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're driving on the freeway and somebody doesn't anchor down something on a
Mhm.
construction truck and then it's just bouncing down the freeway. You didn't expect that, and then it goes through your windshield. You know what I'm saying? You got
Yeah.
a pipe hitting you in the chest all of a sudden, and you're just driving a
Mhm.
school bus. You know what I mean? You didn't
But
think you were
it's
What?
gonna
but
hit the
Dude,
chest
but
with a
I
pipe.
what do you mean?
I seen it. It happened. These
See?
construction dudes, they didn't anchor a pipe. It bounced down the freeway, went through a
yeah,
school bus, hit this dude in the chest.
In Final Destination.
I heard about that actually, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well.
But it's all a moot point if your
Yeah.
fans are protected and they're shrouded. They're basically in a protective shroud,
Yeah.
to where one can completely fail, and the other ones are going to just take over. They'll produce more thrust to keep you still flying, and then you just go replace the fan and do a damage assessment and stuff. So um that's one of the really nice novel designs of hovers.
Yeah, man. You know what I'm saying? You want quality, you gotta wait for that. You see the picture of the prime rib, and they're like, the prime rib's gonna be available in about 12 months, or you can get the McDonald's today. Which one do you want? I'm waiting for the prime rib.
Well, they did. I mean, the thing is with Hover and their stock, I think Hover's got a ways. They've got. It's going to be a while. They
Yeah,
they are they are still making really great announcements, but it's not like there's. But then I don't know. I say that, but then who knows? Maybe they'll come out in a week and just be like, the Canadian government just gave us a $500 million to build
yeah,
to build, and if that's the case, we're all going to be just like, we'll all be having a different conversation,
yeah,
and we'll all have smiles on our faces, at least those that have bought the stock.
That's
But
smart.
I think but I
Honestly.
think realistically they're going to be, you know it could be quiet for a little while too, because they're busy building and designing their prototype. So
that's
it would be
very
really great
true.
if it'd be really great if we get a tour.
Yes.
That's very true.
Yes. That would
Hey,
be awesome.
before we get off, we should all say what we think the next news is going to be. Not to toot my own horn, but I did guess what the next news was going to be. Remember, because I remember in your interview with him, you asked him, "Hey, 3 to 6 month explosive, what could potentially be the next big news?" He was like, "Obviously, I can't say that." Period. Start of new sentence. Then he said, but we have the INSAT grant. We've put in for that. That's public knowledge. And he started talking about that. And then boom, what was the next news? The 2.5 million for the 10 million, crystal program. So
Um, um, interesting you say that. I don't want to get into that too much. Also, Death Smiles just left. Real quick, Jackson, there is other Canadian eVTOL companies, but HOVR is in the lead. And I actually wanted to talk about that in a live stream coming soon, which I guess I'll talk about now. Did I tell you, Anthony, about the HOVR games I wanted to do? The HOVR games.
you mentioned the HOVR games to me. Yes.
Your question is basically part of that. So we'll skip that and leave that for the HOVR games.
I knew it was a smart idea, but I forgot where I got it from.
Oh, you got it from me then. That's fine.
What it was.
You're exposing the ideas already. Oh no, that's fine.
Well, no, it wasn't even that. I was just because usually when we end, we usually, what's the next thing or whatever. I thought that was kind of cool.
No, yeah, we should do that, but we'll do that soon at some other time. I think we should wrap up here. We're almost going at 2.5 hours. It's getting late.
I gotta get to bed.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to talk about. There's a bunch of comments I actually didn't get to that are quite interesting.
Read off a few just real quick. No,
huh?
let's give prudence to some of the comments. Can you just read a couple?
Sure. Starting from it was kind of here. Vast says, look at Archer and Palantir's partnership on air traffic control. It makes it sense as a test bed, 30-year lease. Jackson says, Surf Air Mobility may also have a play with Archer and Palantir. I really like Surf Air Mobility. I've been adding some of their shares, actually. I like them also because they already have revenues. They're already have a business. And then on top of that, they're going to be kind of innovating in the eVTOL space. So we got a little win-win there. Fast says to Jackson, that's part of my thesis as well. I'm thinking they're making a play for Duffy's BVLOs and ATC systems contracts. I honestly have no idea what they're.
And BVLO is beyond visual line of sight.
Oh.
And ATC system contracts. So to talk to that real quick, there are requests for solutions that the government has already put out to revamp the air traffic control system, much more to be AI centric, and because right now it's
Cool.
I mean, there is a computer, like when I put in a flight plan, it goes into a computer and then I contact air traffic control and it pops up on their screen and then they clear me for my flight. But right now, anything with a drone, it can't be beyond visual line of sight. So, and also with the current air traffic control system, it requires a human in the loop because I have to contact, an air traffic controller. Now, with the new air traffic control system, what I think it's going to be is you're going to have, instead of ground-based radios, you will have satellite-based. So instead of me talking to somebody, instead of me going through a radio to the ground, I'm just going to have a Starlink in my airplane, and then literally a computer on the ground could be managing, or me flying through the airspace. Autonomy could be done through satellite uplinks and data transfer, because I could just hit go, and a computer could be talking and guiding me through the airspace compared to a human having to do that. And it can literally be done that can be done autonomously or through AI as well. So, and the air traffic control system is literally 50 to 70 years old, and it's been run the same way for the last 50 to 70 years. It's going to be completely revamped, and they're
Wow,
doing that right now. Um, and
that's
that's that.
awesome.
Yeah,
At the same time as the whole eVTOL stuff is taking off, so like
so
this
that
is
is,
a
yeah, that is the
convergence
big.
of technologies. Yeah,
Yeah, so revamping air traffic control will make things far more efficient than they currently are, but it's also ushering in this entire new capability of
air
autonomous
mobility. Oh yeah,
air mobility,
yeah.
where you won't really need to. What it's going to do is it's going to it'll allow for just completely autonomous flight.
Awesome. I didn't know that. That's so cool to know.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Mark
Mark.
has taught us a lot of new things on this
Yeah.
live. To anyone who hasn't watched it all,
That was a good
probably pretty
comment. That was a
long,
good
but
comment.
No,
Go Voss.
Vass is excellent. He's on
yeah,
it. He
Yeah.
probably
yeah,
knows
he's
more
on
than
the
I do.
Hustle Brothers a
He
lot.
probably knows a lot more than I do. So yeah, and shout out to the Hustle Brothers as well.
Jackson says that bingo, he knows what Vass is talking about, I guess. So that's right, as did Mark. Jackson says when government is involved, money talks, partnerships walk. I like that. Jackson says, if you look at the whole picture, our aviation issues are reported daily, and Duffy is in the spotlight. The new way of travel setup is Archer and Joby. Okay.
For now, it is. Like I said, they're the first mover. But
Mhm.
I think after we get past, once they get certified and it gets in the human consciousness of what these use cases are, it's going to explode, and there's going to be this enormous demand for people wanting more.
That's right. Xerox came before Apple.
Yeah,
Mosaic came before Google. You know, even Internet Explorer, right, and so many other
that's
shitty
right.
browsers, right? ICQ, before WhatsApp, Skype before FaceTime,
Hmm.
you know.
What is his comment? It's
Oh,
really small.
sorry.
That's why I'm like
In
staring.
4 years, I'm thinking this administration is hard set on scaling this new aviation rollout set
Mhm.
up.
Yeah.
4 years is pretty quick, but it can be done, and they've made some strides already to it. We have something coming up soon in December 6th. Oh, already less than a month. We should December 6th or December 3rd, I think. We need to know the path, who's partnering with the government for making the regulations for this
The
in the future.
EIPP
That's
program.
exciting. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, Jackson here was laughing. I think that was earlier to Anthony, because Anthony always says something funny. Jackson says, question, is HOVR the only Canadian eVTOL company? Oh, we answered that no. Actually, Pivotal is one which I spoke to Mark about on my last YouTube video, to anyone who maybe watched that. And then the last one here, Public Oasis says, where can I find the quote where Brandon said the next 3 to 6 months will be
Bloomberg.
And that wraps up for our Q&A section here. And I think that wraps up for
Yeah, I gotta
the
get to bed.
entire night. Yeah, same with the rest of us. So thank you all for joining. And before I wrap it up, where are some of the sounds here again? Did you guys hear the sounds?
Yeah, just Google Bloomberg Horizon. It's like a 2-minute video. There's a guy with an English accent, and he's asking Brandon questions about Horizon. It was at the Mines Minerals. It was the same day as that thing. You'll find it.
There you go. So I just want to applaud all of you for watching and my guest here for joining me. And
thank you for having us.
for all of you staying up
Thanks for
so
having us.
late. And one more for me, for a new platform that we're going to be using. This is super cool and fun. Instead of the boring live streams, we'll try and make them a little more interesting. And future live streams, we'll be having the HOVR games. Stay tuned for that. You don't know what that is yet, but it will be a lot of fun. And everyone who's on here now will join, and maybe some more. I would like to have the Hustle Brothers join and do a big live stream. We'll do that. That'd be awesome. Anyways,
That would be fun.
wrap it up. So, as always, guys, thank you for watching. And until next time, stay thinking, question everything, and peace out.